All right, in the interest of time, I know people are still joining us, but why don't we get going? Because I know our guests have a busy schedule as well. So good morning, Realtors and Landlords. Thank you for joining us today. Our webinar is Understanding the New Lead Compliance Requirements. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Monica Staaf, and I'm the General Counsel for the Rhode Island Association of Realtors and statewide MLS, and I'll be your moderator this morning. So that means I probably have the easy part of the job because I'm really not going to be answering the questions. Our guests are. So, but I will be keeping a close eye on the Q&A for your questions. So as you know, and probably why you registered this morning, Rhode Island law requires the owners of dwelling units to register them with the Department of Health by October 1st. We're very fortunate to have two guests from the Department of Health who are going to share some guidance and resources about that law with you. We'll spend most of the morning answering questions, which I know our two guests have been doing for the past month or so. I think their phones have been ringing off the hook over at the Department of Health. So before we introduce our presenters, I'm going to just set some ground rules for how we're going to conduct the webinar this morning. Our program is going to run from 10 to 11:30. And then if you probably noticed as you're logging in, the session is being recorded. So the recording will be posted on riarealtours.org, probably, let's say by the close of business tomorrow. And okay, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A. And because there's so many of you who are with us this morning, we're not going to be able to unmute you or have you raise hands because we just want to keep this kind of under control so we can get as many questions answered as possible. So if you're using to use the Q&A, on my screen, it's at the very bottom. It says Q&A. Some computers or devices may have that at the top, but that's what you're looking for to type in your question. And I'll remind you of that in case we have some people joining us a bit later. If you're feeling shy this morning, you can always change your screen name to anonymous if you don't want your name to show up. And not that our guests are taking names and numbers or anything while we're here, but I understand people get a little shy sometimes. And then other than that, please keep in mind that our presenters this morning are not the ones who filed this legislation. So in other words, don't shoot the messenger. They're here to provide guidance. They're working to implement this, and frankly, working at a pretty rapid pace to do that. So after all of this, you don't need to hear from me anymore. I'm going to introduce our two presenters from the Department of Health. So first we have Judah Boulay, and Judah is the Lead Poisoning Prevention Health Program Administrator, if I got that right, Judah. And then we also have Jim Gravy. Jim is the Department of Health Program Facilitator of Lead Poisoning Prevention and the Rental Registry. So he's got a heavy lift as well. So thank you both for joining us this morning, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us. I'm happy to do this as some outreach. So do you want me to just get started? We'll have like
please take it away.
Sure. Yeah, so we have a little bit of background just to go over about the whole rental registry law. The law was passed back in June of 2023 and signed into law. Until July 1st of this year, RIDO was not allocated a budget to work on it, and we were just given the task as of July 1st. So we had a very short timeline to work on this, to build something and launch the registry. And the fact that we were able to do so within 2 months is a feat to the entire team here. We have the registry that's live, and then we have one which it's going to be it's constantly going to be upgraded over the course of like the next year, mainly the next 6 months. So the law was passed in, as I said, in 2023, and I want to go over the three pieces of the law that was passed, because that's going to basically set the tenets for like what we have to, like what we're doing, what we need to enforce on our end, and what can be enforced by others. So I think this is what I want. And so I think what I'm sharing is the law itself. All right. So this is part of the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. and the statewide rental registry requires all landlords. Okay, so property managers can't go on and register all their properties. The landlord, a landlord has to have an account. We understand that some landlords have multiple LLCs or multiple property partnerships. Unfortunately, each property partnership needs its own account under the current system, and each one of those accounts needs its separate email address. I understand that's a pain in the butt, but that's just one of the limitations of the system having 2 months to implement. All the information that landlords need to provide can include the information of a property manager, all right, but all of this information here, all right, is public information. All right, this is as defined by the law. All right, so one of the subsections here requires that this is going to be a publicly accessible online database. So we have to create a publicly accessible online database in accordance with sections A and B above. All right. So our recommendation is to make sure that if your home address is that you do not have a that if you don't want your home address on public record, to get a PO box and put the PO box under your mailing address on the registry, because whatever is under the mailing address is going to be the public record. So if the home address and the mailing address are the same, then that's what's going to be on public record. The other piece of this statute for requirements is that any landlord who releases a residential property constructed prior to 1978 that is not exempt from the requirements of the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act needs to show a lead certificate. So the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act, which I'm going to move to, all right, was passed in 2002. Okay, so the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act of 2002 was passed, and the purpose of that passing was to promote the prevention of childhood lead poisoning in Rhode Island. Unfortunately, when they passed this statute, there was no real enforcement mechanism for the Department of Health. To date, there are still around 1,000 children who meet the CDC definition of a blood poison child in the state of Rhode Island. So the legislature and the attorney general, whoever drafted up the rental registry law, saw this, recognized it, and wanted to do something about it. And that was one of the impetuses to creating this rental registry. So all landlords who lease a property, all right, that don't meet the requirements need to have a lead certificate. Now, this law has been in effect since 2005. Landlords have been required since 2005 of residential units to have a valid lead certificate. All right. Only about 18% year to year have had one. So that's been one of the issues. Okay. So exempt properties that they talk about: elderly designated housing and temporary housing. All right. Temporary housing is if you lease your property to to the same tenant for less than 100 days, and there's no leases or no lease renewals. All right, that falls under the statutory requirement of temporary housing. All right, so you would be an exempt from a lead certificate. We'd still ask you to register that website, that residential unit, only because when our the AI modeling we have to vet the registry. I'm going to stop my share. Only the reason we ask that is because when we use the AI modeling, which is going to identify residential units and help tag them for us, it's going to pick up those units as potential rental units. And if our system already has it listed as a temporary housing unit, it will help us on the back end from having to validate your house as a residential as a temporary housing unit down the line. All right, so we're just trying to get a preemptive jump on that. And then previous to January of this year, owner occupied units or owner occupied housing establishments were exempt, but they removed that exemption. So if you own a 3-family house and you live on floor 1, you are now required to have lead certificates for floor 2 and 3. Floor 1 is registered as an owner occupied unit. Floor 2 and 3 would have to be residential units, and those units would require a lead certificate. Lead certificates would be required for the unit itself and then any relative common areas to that unit in order to pass its lead inspection. That's the one major change to, like, if we had to say what's the new lead law, that's the new lead law, right? The new lead law is the removal of the owner occupied exemption. All right, and that came effect in January of 2024. The second part of the statute, so that's the first part, is the whole registration piece of the statute. Now I'm gonna pop back here and I'm gonna share my screen again. And we're gonna go over the other two pieces of the statute. What screen is sharing? I have too many windows open. I apologize. Let me make sure. There we go. Is the statute showing again? I think it is.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. So then the second piece is the landlords are required to do this starting September 1st. All right. That was our statutory deadline, September 1st. They didn't realize that September 1st, 2024 was a Sunday of a holiday weekend. So we implemented the first business day, which was September 3rd. We did not know we were going to have a live registry until Friday of that weekend, before the weekend. Hence, we can't advertise something we weren't sure we're going to have, which is one of the reasons why there hasn't been a whole lot of communication, but we are implementing full multimedia outreach campaigns to allow landlords to understand the requirements of the registry. It says that landlords are supposed to register before October 1st, 2024. We understand that's a very short timeline, and especially for landlords that have not complied with the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act and are scrambling to get lead certificates, we know that there's a little gap there. So starting October 1st, the department is technically allowed to start issuing fines. The failure to register is $50 a month per unit, and the failure to have a valid lead certificate is $125 per month per unit. All right, we are not planning on implementing fines as of October 1st, because we understand that there's still a need and time needed to educate landlords of their requirement and for landlords to come into compliance with the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act. We're giving landlords leeway, all right, for not following the law of 2005. Or with the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act of 2002, which went into effect in 2005. So for 20 years plus years, if you haven't followed the law and you realize you need to follow it now, we're giving you a grace period. How long that grace period is, I do not understand. I do understand. I don't know yet fully. All right, but we will, once we know a deadline for when we will start issuing fines, we will have about a 45 to 30 day public campaign to let you know that fines will be starting, on whatever date. Okay. That's our jurisdiction, right? Our jurisdiction ends there. All right. There's another piece of the law, which is not under our control. And that's this piece right here. All right. Landlords are unable to evict a tenant for non-payment if, as of October 1st, if they are not in compliance with the requirements of subsections A, B, and D of this section. All right. A, B, and D of this section means that a landlord needs to register and a landlord needs a lead certificate if the house is pre-1978. So the recommendation is to schedule your lead inspections if you haven't up until now. I have no idea how the courts, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert. So I don't know how the courts are going to, I don't know how the courts will rule on this. I know what's written in law, right? And that's what the law says. So I don't know how a judge will act in terms of all that. All right. So that's the registry as a whole. All right. In terms of the rental registry, the law as written. Now I'm going to share the registry website. All right. Many of the questions that we're getting are answered on the rental registry website. Okay. We have been getting tons of questions about fines. It's right there in red. All right. We understand that there's a backlog of on the lead inspectors. However, I talked to 2 lead inspectors yesterday, and both of them have appointments available next week. So when somebody emails us and says, I can't find a lead inspector, I know that they've not done their due diligence and only called a couple of people who are at the top of their Google listing. The people who are going to get the most volume, right, with anything when you search on Google is going to be the people who are at the top of the page, all right, the top of the fold. They're the ones who win the Google war, but they're the ones who are going to be most booked. We're also looking at ways to address this perceived shortage and bring on more lead inspectors, or have a way for more lead inspectors in the state, all right, to do these inspections. All right. The one caveat, just because the system is built the way it was, if you're required to have a lead certificate, you're not going to be able to complete your registration without it. So you can put all the information in. However, until you get your lead certificates, you're not going to be able to complete the registration. Jim, am I missing? I'm going to stop my share. Oh, and then the one other thing is that we have this brilliant FAQ page. 90% of the questions that we get are found on the FAQ page. So if you get an email to us and it's answered on our FAQ page, we're going to basically cut and paste the FAQ page question and put it in the email and send it back to you. All right. And what you've done is you essentially, you haven't read and you're putting more workload on an overly overworked staff. So we ask that you please read the FAQ page to make sure that your question doesn't fall into one of those before you send us an email or leave a voicemail. Jim, have I forgotten anything?
No, I don't believe so. You covered it well. And I'll just reiterate, we are a small and mighty team. So please look through the frequently asked questions and see if your question can be answered before contacting our office. We are happy to help, but also we need to do this as efficiently as possible, as there are a lot of landlords in Rhode Island.
So I'm going to start.
Oh, and actually, Judith, before you do the move on, I just wanted to let everyone know, if you want to check your chat. I know some people had asked if they could take pictures of the screen. I put the links in the chat, several different links that Judah showed us. I think I'm missing one of them about the original lead law, and I'll put that in later. But
yeah,
unless you have it handy, Judah. But
yeah, I can put that in the chat.
Yeah, but so definitely hold on to those resources if you haven't already seen them before.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna everything that we do has to refer back to statute or regulation. We're bound by those as well. So I'm gonna put that link for the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act into the chat, and there we go. We're bound and tied to regulations. So I'm just going to start going through these questions. Is there enough lead inspectors? There's people with openings next week. Do more work to call more people. There's 33 active lead inspectors in the state that are not state employees that you can use. Just don't call the people who are at the top of the Google search. Go to lead1978.com. On the side left panel, you'll see lead inspectors tab. You can click that, and there's a list of lead inspectors. If you didn't have a certificate, you didn't read the front page because it says you'll not be able to complete your certificate you cannot be able to complete your registration without a certificate. So now you have to get a certificate and then you can complete your registration. I've already answered the next one. That just moved me down to the bottom. Hold on.
Actually, Gina, before you do that one, I wonder if Jim or you might clarify something I know that we've gotten questions about, and you have too. There was a rumor floating around very recently that there was actually the extent that the deadline for registration had been extended. And what I hear you saying is you're going to take more time on the fining, but there's no actual extension to register.
A lead inspector spread some misinformation from a meeting where we talked about fines being held off to taking that to mean the deadline was held off. All right. The deadline is October 1st. It's a statutory requirement. We have no control over that. Now we can not issue fines as of October 1st, but the statutory requirement, is October 1st, right? We're not issuing fines, but once again, I do not know how the courts will act, right? Because there's a section in there about landlords are not able to evict tenants for non-payment of rent if they don't have a lead certificate if it's pre-1978 housing. All right. Now that also links back to the landlord and tenant handbook, which is provided by the Department of Housing. I could put the link to that in the chat as well, because that has, a lot of this the other information, which is not lead related. I only know lead stuff. All right. And because of the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act and this rental registry being part of the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act, it falls under the auspices of the lead poisoning prevention program, because I didn't have enough on my hands already. But, once again, I want to reiterate, there's 1,000 children each year who get lead poisoning from housing. All right. And 99% of those rent. So did you have any other questions that you want to ask that you think might answer a bunch of those in the chat or that you're getting?
I think so. Yeah, I can kind of scroll through some of these. I think one issue that's come up a lot is a little confusion about the registering, whether they have to register, et cetera. And that would be with the short-term rentals.
Correct.
You did mention that before, but it wouldn't hurt to just kind of repeat that.
Sure. So
do they have to register if someone's renting for 30 days, a week, to a bunch of different tenants, or do they have to register? And if they do have to register, do they need lead certificates?
Correct. All right. So just to make their lives easier down the road, because our AI is going to go in and target rental units, and it's not going to be able to target whether it's long-term or short-term. What we're suggesting people do, and we're highly recommending, is that they register their property, and then they're exempt when it goes to put the units in. They are exempt from a lead certificate because it's temporary housing. Now, the statutory definition of temporary housing is any seasonal place of residence that is rented for no more than 100 days per calendar year to the same tenant, where no lease renewal or extension can occur, and any emergency shelter intended for night-to-night accommodations. That's the statutory definition of temporary housing. All right. So, if you have an Airbnb, or if you have a cottage on Block Island, or a house in Narragansett that you lease in the summer by the week, but then you lease for 9 months to college kids, you need to register, and it's not exempt because you lease to more than one tenant for 9 months. But if you only lease it in the summer and you don't lease it in the winter, then you don't need a lead certificate because it falls under the classification of temporary housing.
Okay, excellent. The other question that I've just been getting this past week for some reason, and you may have been seeing that as well.
Mhm.
If a property, let's say someone has a rental property and it's vacant. Maybe the owner lives in it, but there aren't tenants in the other units. So they're still registering even though the units are vacant, or only after a tenant moves in?
So they should still register the unit. If they plan on renting it at any point in the next year, I would schedule the LEDs. If it's pre-78, I would get get a lead certificate now, and then they can register the unit and put like a date of lease of when they hope to rent it. If they don't plan on renting it ever again and just leaving it unoccupied, then there would technically be an owner-occupied unit.
Okay, great.
So they would register both units as owner-occupied, right? But if they plan on renting it in the future, I would register it now.
Okay,
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
And Jim, if you have anything that you want to add from what kind of questions you're getting or
Yeah.
anything like that, feel free to jump in, because I don't want to skip over you if, you know. And then I guess the other question that's been coming up, and then we'll go back to the Q&A. And by the way, for any of you who joined us late, just as a reminder, if you have questions, type them in the Q&A, and those numbers are rising pretty quickly, so we'll do our best to get through those. But we won't be able to call on you live just because we have 328 of us participating right now.
Yes, I'm going through the Q&A right now as well and answering some of these great questions
Oh,
there.
perfect, Jim. Excellent.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, the more you can work, the more we can work through. I answered a couple before. And also, just as a reminder, for those of you who are asking for the resources that Judah has showed us, we did put them in the chat, so you should be able to pull those. But if not, we'll also make sure the links are on our website with the video. And that'll be posted, like I said, sometime tomorrow. If you're not sure what our website is, it's RIRealtors.org. I'll put that down too, but RIRealtors.org.
Can I just jump in because I see two
Yes.
questions I want to address because I don't think
Go right ahead.
I wasn't
Yep.
clear. All right. So a certificate is for the property. So it's for that property address. So let's just say you're a landlord, you have a lead certificate for your rental unit, and you sell the rental property to another potential landlord. That lead certificate transfers. So that lead certificate for that property transfers. Now, most lead certificates have an expiration date of 2 years. And it's only good for 2 years. Now, if your tenancy doesn't change in that 2 years, from the time you get the lead certificate to the time where that lead certificate expires, you can complete an affidavit of visual inspection after taking a landlord lead hazard awareness course seminar and fixing any issues on the property. And you send that application to the Department of Health with your current valid certificate. And then we can extend that certificate for an additional 2 years. If there's any lapse between the lead certificate and when we got that application in, we cannot extend it through an affidavit of visual inspection. You will need a new inspection. Any post-1978 house does not need a lead certificate. You just register, you say you're exempt, and it's post-1978 housing. If you're a pre-78 house and you completely gutted the house and redid it, it's still a pre-78 house. You still need a lead certificate, and you have two options. If you think you made the house entirely lead-free because you hired a lead contractor and you followed lead-safe work practices with pre-78 housing, you can pay for a comprehensive environmental lead inspection. What this does is comes to the property and uses an X-ray gun and tests for the presence of lead everywhere. So it's everywhere in the house. It's the soil around the house, the soil and any play areas, tests the water. If all those pass, you can get a full lead safe certificate, and a full lead safe certificate lasts for life. It doesn't have an expiration date. So there were certificates which for properties which underwent a comprehensive environmental lead inspection. And these used to say lead free up until I think this is way before my time. I think they said lead free up until 2012, and then after 2012 they said lead safe. Before 2012, it used to say full lead safe, or it used to say lead safe, but it only had a 2-year expiration. So it's really imperative if you have an old certificate to look at the expiration date. Just don't look at the title, look at the expiration date, because people have been sending us these old certificates from 2005 that say lead safe, which expired in 2007, and they're no longer valid, and they haven't been valid since 2007. And then there was a couple of questions about lead inspectors. All right. It's not easy to become a lead inspector. And the regulations, the way they're written, is not only do you have to take a 40-hour class, all right, but you also have to do a mentorship program with the lead inspector. And the lead inspector, that mentorship program, you have to do like a certain number of inspections of the comprehensive environmental lead inspections with them. And there's not many people doing those, and they're all overwhelmed right now, and they can only handle a couple of lead inspectors in training at a time. So it's not necessarily like, like people might see this as an easy money grab for down the line and be like, oh, I want to become a lead inspector. You can't do any of your own properties. You can't do properties of family members or anybody associated with you. And it's a long process because your training certificate is only valid for 1 year. And if you don't complete the mentorship program within that year, you lose the training certificate. So like you have to retake the class. So if you want to become a lead inspector, all right, and we have no control of that. We can't force people to take on lead inspectors and trainings. My take is if you want to become a lead inspector, I would arrange with somebody already in the field who has an X-ray gun, all right, the XRF equipment, all right, that they're going to mentor you once you finish your lead inspector training. If you don't have that arranged before you take the class, you're gambling with your money. All right. And that's all because that's all based on regulations. All right. And then every year you have to take a refresher class.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in here about what's required to register. All properties need to be registered. I do want to stress that there are exemptions on what needs to a lead certificate. For example, somebody asked about properties built 1978 and later. You may be exempt from a lead certificate. Registering on the rental registry is a requirement for all rental units, though.
And so how do you physically, if someone has an exemption, where are they clicking that on the form? Like, for example, I know there's some confusion about short-term rentals, and I think temporary housing is the correct.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you. All right. So this is the registry website. All right. This is after you register your property, you get to a units page. You have to register each unit. So are you exempt from the requirement to obtain a lead certificate? You have to click yes here. If you click yes here, you then have to select one of the 4 exemptions. All right. It's elderly care, an owner-occupied unit, post-1978 housing, which means any house built after 1978, and then temporary housing, which is less than 100 days to any one tenant. There's no leases and there's no lease renewal. Those are the exemptions.
I think while you're on there, Judah, Jim, if you could talk a little bit about the elderly exemption. Because I'll just let you know, like, I've had some questions from people saying, hey, all of my tenants are 65. Does that mean that I'm exempt?
No. So I'm going to share my screen to the statute. As always, we refer back to statute. All right. So elderly housing means a federal, state, or local program that is specifically designed and operated to assist elderly persons 62 years of age or older as set forth in a regulatory agreement or zoning ordinance. So this is not a multifamily house who rents to an elderly person. This has to be a designated elderly care facility, such as a nursing home. So if you have a nursing home that was built prior to 1978, that's designed for elderly housing, or assisted living, let's just say, then that is what's designated as elderly care.
Perfect, thank you. That's definitely.
Just renting to old people is not an exemption. And unfortunately, when that unit, right, if you rent to an elderly person now, and a year, you might not be renting to an elderly person. So the lead certificate goes not with the tenant, but it goes to the address, and it's good for 2 years.
And two good questions. And I know both of you are actively monitoring the Q&A as well, but
Jim is more than me.
okay. Well, one of them is, and Jim, if you feel free, if you want to type any of the answers, feel free to do that. Whatever's, if you're not, you might already be doing that, but feel free to do that if you like.
Sure.
So one of the questions that's been coming up, I've been getting a lot lately, has been someone is selling a house that has a tenant in it, or maybe it's a multifamily, whether it's vacant or has tenants in it. So in order to sell the property, do they have to have a lead certificate? And have to have the property registered? Well, I'll tell you what my answer is, since you're both hesitating.
But no, I'm sorry.
I
think one of the questions caught my attention.
Oh, no worries.
And then I got distracted. I apologize.
No, that's okay. We're all kind of multitasking, including probably our audience. No, if with the sale of a property, I've been saying, like, it's not, there's no law that says you have to have lead certificates in order to transfer title, but is it likely to become a subject of negotiation?
It could be.
Sure.
I'm not. So here's one of here's one of my problems that I've been having, right? So, and this is a little pet peeve, and it may be justified, it may not be. But little things like just get with me. All right. So if because we've been getting a lot of like real estate agents complaining that like they have rental properties and they have their real estate lead awareness seminar class, but then they don't understand why that doesn't count for them to do a visual affidavit. And because the requirements of the lead hazard awareness seminar for real estate for landlords, all right, isn't the same requirements for a continuing ed class. And my feeling also is that it's a real estate agent's responsibility to let people know who are buying homes or when they're selling homes to the potential buyers about the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act and requirements for a lead certificate. And it's the real estate agents who should be educating their clients and then using this information to with their with the transaction, right? Or with that transaction piece, right? And they're not. Because we got people saying, well, they disclosed lead, but they never told that we needed to have lead certificates to rent it. And for me, it's a little pet peeve because I feel real estate agents in those sales should have been doing a better job of educating their clients. So it's could be, but I don't think it's ever going to be statutory, right? That's something that the agents, knowledgeable agents can work into, like transaction requirements, to answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, especially now. I mean, I'd say in the past, unfortunately, and you, Jim and Judah, cover your ears on this one. No, you don't have to, but no, but I'd say in the past, just because of the lack of strong enforcement tools, I'd say, I mean, very few buyers would ever have a lead inspection at the time they're buying a house. But I think now with the new registration requirements and the certificate, and clearly having to record those certificates, I think if you were selling a multifamily, whether you yourself are the owner or whether you're a listing broker, I think you're going to see, anticipate a lot more buyers are going to be asking once the word spreads, once the Department of Health continues its outreach, I think you're going to see a lot more buyers saying like, hey, is this property already registered? Particularly if it has tenants in it. Are there lead certificates for the existing tenants? I think you'll see more of that happening. And certainly if you represent a buyer, I mean, a lot of this is prone to market conditions, but you know, the buyer, are you gonna want to ask for lead certificates? Is the property registered? Does the buyer want to conduct their own lead inspection or ask the seller to do it? So I think there are a lot of things that I think we're gonna change where people sort of glossed over. And one other comment, and actually Jude and Jim, I don't know if you want to address this one. I did see a question earlier in the Q&A to ask if the lead disclosure, the mandatory lead disclosure, was going to be updated in any way. I know it was a couple of years ago, but I don't know if there's anything current that would be updated, because I do have to hand that out.
I don't know, but if there is, I can't discuss any proposed legislation.
Okay.
So, one thing, how are landlords being notified to the requirements to register their property? All right. So we've been getting yelled at about this. You haven't let us know. And one of the ways is we have no way to let you know. Right. So like everyone thinks that we have readily access to, access to all property records in each of the municipalities. Like we're the state and municipalities are municipalities, right? While that information is publicly online, we don't currently have the ability to data mine all those websites, right? And we didn't have that ability to do it, and definitely in 2 months. We're gonna have that ability within the next 6 months to verify if people have registered the units, and that's what the AI piece is going to be doing. To answer another question, landlords are being notified of the requirements currently from word of mouth and press releases and some social media posts. But in the next coming weeks, there'll be full multimedia campaigns to include billboards, radio, TV ads, as well as a more robust multimedia campaign up until the time we're planning to start implementing fines. So we are going to do our best to educate for the next couple months. Then we're going to let people know on this date we're going to be issuing fines, and we're going to do our best to get the word out as robustly as possible. We didn't have much time. Like we didn't know much. We didn't even know the URL until the Friday that the URL was set in stone, until the Friday before Labor Day weekend. So it's like you can't advertise something you're not 100% sure of, because if we did and the site wasn't up and running, we would have gotten public backlash for that. So we're gonna notify landlords of the requirement, and then every year those who register are going, and because now we have their phone and their email, we can notify them, right? If they opted in for notifications, to go and fulfill the statutory requirement that they update their contact information annually. And we'll also have the ability to notify them 30 days before a lead certificate expires that lead certificate's expiring and that they need to book an inspection to renew it. It'll be 30 or 60 days before. So we're going to have all that functionality with the registry, which we didn't have before. And it's going to allow people more time, but there's that initial, like that initial bump in the road to get everybody information into the system, so we can start doing a lot more of that preemptive communication, so that to notify people of the requirements and stuff.
There are a few specialized areas I wonder if you might comment on, and I know you're looking at other questions you'd like to answer as well, but one of them will be with condos. If someone has a condominium, who is responsible for the common areas? How does that all work if someone's renting out
for condos? If they're going for a regular certificate of lead conformance, the CLC, it's only the condo unit itself. Only the interior of the condo unit. It has to have seamless paint. There can't be any chipping or peeling of paint or any water damage. And it's a visual inspection and 3 dust wipes, a windowsill, and some floor dust wipes. If a condo is trying to get a full lead safe certificate, which is the one that doesn't expire, then the common areas come into play, and then it's like looking at the common areas as well as the exterior, if that applies.
Excellent.
That's what it's safe.
And then another one is on historic properties. I know that we saw a few comments about, any special treatment for historic properties,
The law does not differentiate between historic properties or regular properties. We know and understand, and we've been getting a lot of things on this because historic district commissions and historic preservation societies don't want to bend either on their requirements. So there's a lot of issues. We're trying to figure out some measures to work with those historic properties. However, the biggest hangup in historic properties is the windows. Wood on wood windows generate friction, and unless they've been completely stripped and repainted and done, there's lead hazards. They'll create lead dust, they'll fail the dust wipes, and they're not going to pass an inspection. So there are ways, so it's a full wood window replacement if approved by your historic district commission. There is stripping the current window, and there's some companies which do this for historic homes. And then there's the placement of like a vinyl insert so that it's no longer wood on wood, but wood on vinyl. Those are the three remedies. We're working on figuring out some things with double hung windows and whatnot, but there's no official guidance on that yet. It's something that like we're listening to a lot of like the feedback, and we're trying to figure out a way to make, and like our biggest thing is 1,000 kids have been blood poisoned a year, right? That's 1,000 too many. This is an entirely preventable thing, which and people say, well, it doesn't affect me. Well, it does, because everybody here pays taxes, and your tax dollars are going to education costs, because kids who have been lead poisoned are shown to repeat grades more, have lower test scores, require more services from the schools. All right. Kids who have, and there's more school absences in kids who have been blood poisoned. All right. You're saving money down as a taxpayer down the line with Department of Justice, because there's increases of antisocial behavior. There's more DC juvenile justice cases with kids who have been blood poisoned. All right. And then there's the healthcare costs. And then there's the long-term past 18 long-term correctional costs because there's a higher correlation of antisocial and aggressive behavior with children who have been lead poisoned. So it affects everybody, right? People say it doesn't affect me. I don't have this type of housing. Why do I have to do this? This is unfair and unjust. Well, it's going to save you money down the line. If we tackle this problem now as a whole state and rid all the communities of lead poisoning, we don't have these children who are poisoned, who are going to lead to greater costs down the road of having to deal with all the services that are going to be needed to handle them. So if it's like over the course of 5 years, that's 5,000 kids, right? If we doing 1,000 kids a year, 5,000 kids who won't have those added costs in future years if we eradicate kids who are lead poisoned.
Well, thank you for bringing it back to that, Judah. So two other quick questions from me, and then we can go back to and trying to summarize some of the ones that I've been getting or have been posted in the Q&A. That one of them is an in-law apartment. So if you've got, main house, and then someone's got a unit that maybe is either attached to the house or maybe it's separate, is that something that would be registered?
If they have a lease, it's a rental unit and it needs to be registered. And if it's pre-78, it needs a lead certificate.
Okay, so basically if you had like a family, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you had if a family member lived in that in-law apartment and they're not,
then it would be
then
it would be if it was a family like member who lived in that unit, it would be an owner occupied unit. Here's the one caveat, right? So like it's an owner occupied unit, but just don't rush to that exemption for everything or think you can get away with having a lead certificate, because if you lie on the registry and we find out, like there's in the rental registry law, there's like ways for there's a whole thing about the attorney general going after people, and God forbid a child got lead poisoned in there, right? It's not going to be a cheap, because you're attesting on the registry page, so now you're committing perjury, and there's a whole subsection in the rental registry law And then there's the whole subset of the Lead Poisoning Prevention Act, which, you know, has like penalties of $5,000 a day. So it's not cheap. So just don't rush to jump to that owner occupied unit exemption, because you know, there's,
No,
but
that's,
any questions with that, like if they have a like, so those are one-off questions which are difficult to answer with like, as you know, in the whole. Those are like the one-off questions that people have, where if
Sure.
you email us, we can provide you a answer based upon your particular circumstance, versus just, you know, like saying generally, right? Just for, you know, I'd rather do
sure,
that.
that makes sense.
But if you
Yeah,
have a family member living like in an in-law, then that would be owner occupied in my.
yeah, probably a lot depends on paying rent and things. And then the final one I have for you before we go back to the other ones, that would be, we've had a few questions on there, and I've had some questions as well about presumptive compliance. So
Yep.
if someone's got, is a threshold 10 or more units or more than 10 units? How that relates to their getting lead certificates?
Sure. So if a property owner has 10 or more units, they can file for presumptive compliance. So they need 5% of the units to be inspected with a minimum of 2. And they would need to, these units are inspected randomly, and then they would file an application of presumptive compliance with us, show us the certificates that are valid, and then list all the addresses and number of units. And then we would issue certificates to all the units in that property or in that building or at the addresses. It's not, it could be multiple addresses as long as it adds up to 10. And it goes to the presumptive compliance lasts 2 years, and the expiration is the date of the earliest certificate expiration. So it can't be any housing before 1960. So it has to be 1960 to 1978. If you have a 300 unit building built in 1950, you need 300 certificates. It's just because there was more lead paint, and there's going to be more issues in housing before 1960. There's more lead in paint before 1960. But 1960 and 1978, they are able to, and if they've never had any issues with blood poisoned children in their establishments, they can file for presumptive compliance. And that's in the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act. It's under the definitions. It's also in the lead hazard mitigation regulations, which I can put into the chat. I just want to answer one question.
Of course, yes.
Because it's what, so in terms of like when an inspector comes to a unit, what are they looking at? What are they looking for? They're going to enter the common areas, and they're going to enter the apartment, and they're going to look for seamless paint. They're going to make sure that, and all the walls of the closets and anything built into the wall. So like if there's a bookshelf that's like built in, they're going to look at all of that. And they're going to look for no paint chips, no peeling paint, no cracking paint, no cracks in the ceiling of paint. They're going to make sure that there's a seamless coat of paint over the entire place. They're going to make sure that there's no water damage, that there's no bubbling paint. Any of those are lead hazards, and they will fail the visual inspection. They won't even get to the dust wipes piece. If the visual inspection passes, then they're going to take a minimum of 3 floor of dust wipes. So they're going to probably focus on, if there's a room where children are, they're going to probably focus on that room. And they're going to take a dust wipe in the common areas. Each common area, they're going to take a dust wipe, like 2 different floors, and then they're going to take a windowsill dust wipe. And then they're going to send those to the lab, and there's certain thresholds that have to be met. If the threshold is met, then they pass. If the threshold is met and not met, then they fail, and the work needs to be done to mitigate the lead hazards. For the CLC, the 2-year expiration, it's the passing of the visual as well as the dust wipes. Soil samples can be taken all right, to see if there's lead and soil and bare soil within 5 feet of the house. But that should not hold up a CLC from being granted based upon the regulations. So if the regulations say the interior, the common areas, and the exterior paint of a building also has to be seamless as well. There can't be any chipping paint on the exterior of the building. It's got pre-78. So soil and water are not part of the lead hazard mitigation inspection, which gives the CLC. That the soil can be tested. If the soil does have lead, the inspector can tell the person that the soil failed and that they should perform some remedies for it, but it shouldn't hold up a certificate of lead conformance, a CLC. Now, if you're going for a comprehensive environmental and trying to get a full lead safe, the water has to pass and the soil has to pass, as well as everything inside has to be like lead safe. And the lead safe standard is with the X-ray gun less than 1.0 reading on the X-ray gun.
Excellent. And just a quick announcement for people who are listening. We've had some requests. I know Jim's been doing a great job answering questions. Judah's been doing them live. Jim's been answering them in writing and monitoring those. Some people have said that I guess they're having difficulty multitasking. So I will see if we can release the transcript, if that's okay with our presenters, if we can post that with the video. But you don't have to answer right now, Jim and Judy. You can just let me know afterwards, and we can show you what the transcript looks like. But
Okay.
some questions I'm seeing in here are really specialized ones, like things about roommates or things about, you know, who's in and so I some of those specialized questions, I think you were just telling us, Judah, it's best to really reach out to the Department of Health, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for like
there's a question
specific
about
like
this.
questions, it's best to like for very specific questions about circumstances which are not like which don't fall into like 98% of the norm, then reach out to us. But if they're normal questions, like I would just check the FAQ page first to make sure your question is not answered there.
Perfect.
Chalky aluminum. I believe at some point they used to coat all aluminum with lead paint, and chalky aluminum probably has lead in it. So, yeah.
There's something else to be concerned about, huh? And
But it
pipe
all depends. I don't know. It all depends upon when the aluminum was made, right? Lead paint was outlawed. Outlawed in 1978. After 1978 for residential properties. It's still allowed in commercial paint, but not for residential.
Oh, there's one quick question you might want to clarify, because otherwise I can see a giant loophole forming in people's minds. When you're talking about having a written lease, now a lot of people might use like a month-to-month tenancy where they either have a written month-to-month tenancy or it's not written, but maybe they had a lease at one point and it lapsed. Now it's month-to-month. So
Registered.
you're still counting those as someone's
Yes.
paying rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still counting that as if it's a residential rental unit, right, where people can live for longer than 100 days, right? It's not set up as a short-term rental, then that needs to be registered.
We have a lot of creative thinkers in our audience, so I just
Yeah,
need to make sure I can see
listen,
that bubble.
like we're like the AG is, you know, like so like we're gonna data mine all the tax assessor databases. We're gonna identify this, and then if people who don't register and try to get out of things, we're going to be able to target them. All right, and it's just like one of those things. So like, just please follow the requirements of the law. We have limited time we can around the paint. Can we get an interior certificate and get an exterior done? Great question. I'm gonna address this. All right, this is a great question. So from November 1st until March 31st, there is the ability to get an interior only CLC. The interior only certificate of lead conformance means that the interior is intact and you have a valid lead certificate. However, so let's just say November 1st, you get an interior only. That certificate expires June 30th. If you don't get it retested from March 31st to June 30th, which happens a lot. Many people forget to get the exterior painted or done, and then they don't update to get a full CLC. Their lead certificate expires June 30th. Now, let's just say on June 30th, they get the full CLC. The expiration date for that CLC is November 1st, 2026. It doesn't go from when the exterior passes, it goes from the earliest date of the interior passing. If that makes sense. I think I explained that clearly. The Rhode Island Landlord lead class can be taken at leadsafekids.org. I'll put the that's the only, right now it's the only training provider. It's a 3-hour online class. It goes over identifying lead hazards. I'll put that in the chat. And that's the only acceptable Rhode Island landlord class.
I think, and you talked about that a little bit earlier, some of the confusion between like maybe real estate licensees who've taken a real estate continuing education class versus that. They used to be one and the same, but that changed, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. So you could use the same thing for everything, but that was split off. So if you're a realtor and have taken a continuing education class, definitely not the same as the class Judah was just talking about. So if you have a property you're going to be doing visual inspections, you definitely want to take the other class. And that they have, I know they have it available online.
This is the only, only right now there's only one class that's available online.
Okay, perfect.
And it's only in English. And I know that's we're looking to get a Spanish landlord class approved, but we haven't had any applications for that.
And where do people take, you're just talking about lead inspectors and people wanting to become them. There was a question here about where can I take classes to become a lead inspector?
There's Mass ETI is the only provider of is the only right now licensed provider in the state. I will put that thing. The only thing is though, one of their caveats is that they won't accept somebody into the class if they know that they're not going to be able to fulfill the apprenticeship piece, or they're not going to take as many. They're limited. So like I said, before you even decide to take the lead inspector class, make sure you have somebody who's going to mentor you once you finish the class. That's just one of the like and you just make sure you have somebody, because it's a $1,500 investment, I think, to take the class. And we just don't want you to spend the money if there's not going to be somebody who's willing to take you.
And it was Mass DTI. I'm sorry.
Mass ETI. It's Mass Environmental Technical Institute.
Oh, ETI. Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I put the link. And then all the environmental lead standards for X-ray guns and stuff, for paint, they're all in we have there's guidance documents and stuff. I don't know it's 1.0 for most services, but then there's some limitations on other services for the different certificates. So I'm not a lead inspector. I'm like, at most I'm going to be a lead assessor, but like that's, like, I don't know the technical aspects. I'm the program administrator for like all lead in the state. So we have our state lead inspectors, and any like specific questions, I have to defer to their expertise to get an answer.
Perfect. And a lot of this information is found on the website, right? Department of Health
Yes.
website.
There's a website, which if you go to, I'll put it in the thing, www.lead1978.com. All right, that links to the Department of Health landlord page. Okay, I would just, instead of, I created an easier URL for billboards and flyers than just help.ri.gov // like 17 different bleed-in backslashes. So we have that for landlords.
Fair enough. Let's
Jim,
see
any
what's-
questions that you think I should answer, that you're seeing that like would be good to answer as a group?
Let's see. Going through the ones that I have the answer for, I'll flag the ones that are good for a group here.
Well, when you might want to let people know about, once they have the property registered, how often do they have to re-register it?
So the statutory requirement is yearly. But we're going to, what we're going to do is we're going to notify them 30 days before that they need
Great.
to, right? Because we have people's emails and phone numbers, right? So we can send an SMS or we can send an email saying, please go in and check the box that nothing's changed, or update your information. And if nothing's changed, they still have to log in and attest that nothing's changed, right? Because it's a statutory requirement that they go on. So like once, it's not like a one and done forever, like yearly, they're gonna have to log into the system at least once a year. It's my hope that down the line, those property owners who have multiple LLCs, all those accounts can be combined, all those properties can be combined. But we just didn't have the functionality to do it currently.
Would you recommend if someone doesn't have the lead certificates now, but maybe they've scheduled an appointment and all of that, does it make sense to start the registration process now and save it, or just wait until they have
Yeah,
it?
whatever they put in, it gets saved. It's if they want to get the thing started and then enter the certificates down the road, that's fine. They can at least get their information and their properties, and we have a whole list of draft. All the information we saved as draft. So go in and go now. You just can't complete the registration without the lead certificates. So,
Here's a good one. Someone wants to know, how are landlords notified of the requirements to register their property? It sounds like they want to know about re-registering, how that notification is going to look.
yeah, it's going to be an email or text from the same email that they would, if they registered already, if they got a confirmation email, it will just come similar to that.
We did have a comment.
So hold on, there was one about if the
Go ahead.
certificate of conformance has expired with the same tenant, you cannot complete an affidavit of visual inspection. There can't be any lapse in certification. So if you didn't do it already, then you have to get a lead inspection, and you can do it in the future if there's no change in tenancy. That's just, there can't be any lapse in certification.
I did see a question here that's it's more of a legislative question, but I'll toss it out there. And that is now that this is the realities of all this is setting in, are we likely to see any kind of legislative changes to the rental registry?
I cannot comment on any. I don't know of any, but if there were, I wouldn't be able to comment on any proposed legislation.
Understandable. I will, some of you might, I know there was some confusion, or actually it's probably right around the time when Judy, you just started was it June?
I started in January. So
I'm sorry.
January this year.
Okay,
Yep.
I guess I hadn't contacted your predecessor in a while then. But I was just gonna say that I know that there was some confusion about when all this was gonna originally take effect, because the governor had filed legislation as part of his budget at the very, very start of the year. He was trying to postpone the lead registry for a year. He was
And that
also
gets denied.
narrow the scope, right? And that did not pass.
It
But I
didn't
still
pass.
get
It didn't
calls from
pass the
people,
House. It
right?
did not pass the House of Representatives, so it didn't even make it to the Senate.
Right, yeah, it was definitely removed from the budget. So, yeah, so I still sometimes get questions about that with 2025, and it just,
No.
as you heard it from Judah.
The deadline is October 1st, 2024, with the caveat that we're not issuing fines as of October 1st. But there's the section that we are in control in, and the section the courts are in control in. And I'm not a judge, and I don't know if a judge will allow a tenant to not pay rent and not be evicted until a lead certificate is garnished or gathered. There's one question about Victorian houses and stripping windows in a 9,000 square foot house. Totally understand. I'm very sympathetic, but we don't know that children will live in the house in the future. And you've had 20 plus years to do little by some piece by piece to fix the windows. So there's two perspectives to this. It's like we're putting this on tenant and landlords all at once. Nope, the law's been in effect since 2005. If you chose not to take the required precautions of the law since 2005 and now have all that financial burden on you now, that was a choice that you as a landlord or a property owner made in 2005 to ignore the statute then. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do something about it now. All right. This law is not new. The only thing which has really changed has been the enforcement piece of requiring lead certificates. Previously, it was municipality to municipality, and if they want to enforce it. Now there's a way for the Department of Health to enforce these lead laws. Now, there's also the municipalities can on their as well enforce the lead laws, right? So we have no control. The municipalities have that enforcement action because it's all in code, right? That no lead paint in houses. So if all of a sudden they want to jump on this and also find property owners, municipal law allows that. If it potentially could allow that as enforcement, as well as state enforcement. So like these aren't new laws. The laws have been in effect since 2005. It's, while I'm sympathetic, I also understand that, people haven't followed the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act, right? It's been out there since 2002 when it was passed and enacted in 2005.
Yes.
I just see one. Realizing the overall concern regarding high rental prices, how does the state expect to pay for lead compliance without raising rental costs? Well, I guess if you want to raise your rent because you have to pay $180 to pass a CLC, then that's on you as a property owner and not on the state. So, this has been a requirement since 2005, and it's, you can blame whoever you want, and it's just, unfortunately, this has been a requirement since 2005.
Judah, Edward Johnson wants to know, how does AI target a home as a rental property? Would you like to kind of give an overview on that process?
AI is going to data mine through Google and through tax assessor property ad databases. And it's going to be able to give us a proper vetting of and target all potential rental units in the state. I'm not a computer whiz. I just know that's the basic general description. And we're going to be using Google Maps and tax assessor databases to generate the compilation of all the properties. And once again, lead inspectors have appointments next week. You can go through the list. There's 33 lead inspectors licensed in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Partial lead certificates are not issued if the interior passes, but the exterior fails. To answer one question, the whole property has to pass. Difference between a lead inspector and a lead assessor. A lead inspector is licensed to inspect private homes. A lead assessor works for a municipality and or the state, and is only able to work on properties through their direct work with that municipality or state agency. So if there's a lead assessor who is licensed and he works at DCOIF. If they go out for a DCOIF case and they have to they can assess whether that home is lead safe because they're a lead assessor. If there's lead assessors in the city of Providence, so sometimes they send code enforcement officers, or they have a lead safe program and they're working within the jurisdiction of their municipality of Providence. They can go to a property and assess whether the work being done, it was done, and the property is now lead safe.
There's a question about just how to access, and I think the answer to a lot of these is going to be check the Department of Health website. But where can people find that list of licensed inspectors?
It's on the, if you go to https / lead1978.com, it will bring you to the landlord page on the Department of Health. On the left-hand column, it's going to say find, and you're going to choose the lead inspectors option, and that's going to bring you to a list of lead inspectors.
Excellent. And we're actually just winding down to, we've got about 11 minutes left. So let's see, we'll make sure we're not missing any.
This is for residential units only, mixed use buildings. The residential units and common areas have to pass. The commercial units do not.
All right. I think what we will, one thing that I will suggest, I know some people are asking, where can we get a copy of the recording? I will talk to our communications department.
I want to answer one question. No one
Okay.
had, because this is incorrect. All right. No one has mentioned that work must be done by a licensed lead contractor. That is incorrect. So there's two types of work which need to be done. There's lead hazard there's mitigation work, and then there's abatement work. Abatement work can only be done by a licensed lead contractor. Abatement work is going to be if you want to tear down all the walls and do demo and rebuild a unit that was built in 1978 and put all new windows in and all new walls and new stairs and the whole nine. That's abatement work. That needs to be done by a licensed lead contractor. If you have chipping paint on the wall that's greater than 6 square feet, that is work that's lead hazard control work, and that needs to be done by a licensed lead renovation firm. All right, so there's different types of work defined by statute, and it requires different types of licensed professionals. Lead hazard mitigation work or lead hazard control work is in the RRP lead renovation firm license. So it's taking the RRP class, right? It's about lead safe practices in terms of cleanup and doing and sanding and what work can be done. All right. And it's about how to make sure that everything's cleaned up so that there's no lead hazards. It's a lot different than abatement work. So you don't have to hire a lead contractor to do lead hazard control work. In fact, a lead contractor can't do lead hazard control work. All right. There's two separate licenses. If a lead contractor doesn't have their RRP license or the lead renovation firm license, they can't do that paint work. And also the other requirement is that any pre-78 house, if you're going to have plumbing work done, or if you're going to have windows replaced in those houses, the firm which does that work also needs to have that lead renovation firm license as well. So if you're going to replace your windows and it's a pre-78 house, make sure that the firm you hire, all right, is a lead renovation firm, because they have the proper certification or the knowledge to do the work, which is going to keep things done in a lead safe manner, and they'll file the proper paperwork and stuff. Right. The biggest pain in the butt, which we don't want to have people do, is if and this happens all the time. A landlord's doing work in a house, somebody calls and files a complaint, we go out, they don't have the proper classwork, we have to shut this work site down until they get the proper licensing and classwork. And that means that, like, if a window's already out, they have to board it up or do something, and it's not an ideal circumstance, right? So just make sure you hire the proper lead licensed professionals. So for lead hazard control work, which is it's a lead renovation firm. For lead abatement work, it's a lead contractor.
We do. Well, we have Jim and you here, Judah. We do have a few comments about really what the costs are that are involved. So some of the people have posted in the Q&A, it's not the cost of doing the inspection that's the issue, it's the cost of window replacement. You know, we're spending thousands of dollars in some cases to get the work done. So I think that's, that's some of the frustration you're hearing from landlords. And then also just one of our realtors just had posted posted a comment that, a lot of the owners, it's not as though some of the same owners certainly might have owned the property for 20 years, but a lot of them are newer owners. And I think that that goes into what you were talking about earlier, the importance of education. So I'm going to talk to our communications department, and I don't want to volunteer them for too much so they don't get mad at me, but I will talk to them and see. We will definitely post the recording, this video recording as promised on our website, riarrealtors.org. I'll see if we can compile some of those links and get people used to, kind of help direct people to your website too. But we're really down to the final 6 minutes now, according to my device. So I don't know if you have any burning questions you'd like to address or any comments that either of you'd like to make, tips, suggestions, anything like that.
I'm just looking. So the biggest thing is, Al, I don't understand some of these questions. So if you're going to email us a question, once again, please read the FAQ section. All right. And then when you email, if you do have a question that's still burning that you feel the FAQs do not answer, please email us and please fully describe what the question is. Even from some of the comments in the chat, it's not a fully defined question, and we can't answer fully defined questions. And it's either going to get deleted and ignored, or it's going to be, we need more information, and it's just going to, take more time to answer. The other thing is so when you fully register a property, you're going to come to an attestation page. That attestation page saying you acknowledge that everything is accurate and correct. You're going to select yes, you hit submit. You should get an email of confirmation. Don't email us and ask if your property is registered. If you don't come to an attestation page and you don't get that confirmation email, chances are you didn't finalize everything. There, you can check in your dashboard the submission status, and you can check your spam for the email if you didn't get it. However, don't email us. We're going to tell you we don't have that capability. All right. Or we're just not going to respond because we're overwhelmed with actually questions that we have to answer.
Judah, there was one area that was, you answered this earlier, but I'm seeing a couple of people were confused a little bit about it. So if you have an owner-occupied 2-family property or owner-occupied multi-unit, all units register or just the ones that will be rented?
You're going to register all the units. The unit that the owner lives in is going to be registered as owner-occupied. So let's say you have 2 units, floor 1, floor 2. You're going to go in, you're going to put in, are you exempt from a lead certificate? Yes. All right, owner-occupied unit, floor 1. All right, and that's all the information it's going to need. Submit that unit. Then you're going to put unit 2. All right, and you're going to put, are you exempt? No. And then it's going to ask for your certificate number, your certificate date, when the lease began, or I believe, and then it's going to ask for you to upload a copy of the certificate. All right, and then you enter all that information and you hit submit, and that unit's registered. And if you put 2 units on the property page and you have 2 units, it's going to allow you to go to the attestation page and you can complete the registration for that property. If you don't have the certificate for the floor 2 yet, you're not going to be able to complete the registration. So once you get the certificate, you're going to have all the information to enter. You hit submit then, and then you can get to the attestation page, and then you can submit your property.
Thank you for clarifying that. Hopefully that answers everyone's questions on that. And then with the owner-occupied unit, they're not, because they're exempt, they're not doing a lead certificate. They're just registering, but no lead certificate.
Correct. And then there's no fee with registering. This is everything is being done. There's no fee for registering. The fees have been the fees which have been in place since 2005, which is the fees involved with getting a lead inspection performed for your property.
Excellent.
Oh, there's one other thing.
Sure.
This is a fully online database. All right. Unfortunately, there's no paper forms and there's no way to call in and register a property. Okay. So if someone doesn't have access to a computer, we are referring people to local libraries, or if you have an elderly client, we are referring people to local libraries or senior centers, or asking them to have a family member help them in the registration process.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank the both of you for taking such a big chunk of your time today, when I know you've got a lot going on with this, the deadline approaching next week. But
This is
everyone, please, let's at least virtually or mentally thank Judah Boulay and Jim.
Let me just jump in one more because I see it and it's pressing. All right.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I just want to
Property
thank,
is
I'm not
registered-
hanging up on you, Judah. I just wanted to thank you before people leave. So thank you
No
both
worries.
for joining us.
Property was registered and sold. How is that handled in the registry? All right. So you would go into your account, you delete the property from your registry account, and then the new owner has 30 days to register that property, if that makes sense. So you go in, you have a property, you go in, you delete that property from your account. All right. And then the new owner has to register. And with that, I have to leave because I have another meeting at 11:30. Hopefully we answered every questions. Once again, please do not email us if your questions answered in the FAQs. Please check the FAQs on the homepage for pressing information. That helps us out, help more people in the state answering questions.
And they're only 2 pages. They're frequently asked questions. You're not going through like 20 pages of stuff. But anyway,
Yes.
hope you two both
All right.
see the emojis and love your thumbs up you're getting and hearts. And thank you again so much for your time. And thank you all who are listening. Thank you, landlords and realtors. Thank you all for joining us. And hopefully we can get answers to any questions that weren't answered already. So have a great day and watch for that recording if you want to replay it. Jim, thanks for answering all those questions behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.